Good morning, everybody. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham. I am your host for Middle Earth readings in our new exciting format, working with a single rune, if that feels good for you, through the course of a lunar month. We are on our second week of working now. We're working with the waxing moon, Mani's chariot. The chariot of the moon is moving through our sky and he is gathering energy at the moment. So last week we set intentions, so if you missed that live you can always go and look at that as well. This week we're going to be looking at receiving energies through the rune that we've chosen to work with, and through the planetary movements, and through what we are open to at this point. Hi Suki, hi Suzanne, lovely to see you. Good morning. Hi Candice. And yeah, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the month ahead. We're just about to open for March in the hearth space. So our theme that's coming through for this week is really fitting in with the moon, but also with some of the larger themes. It feels like a little bit of a hinge, which to me the waxing moons and the waning moons often do feel like these sort of hinge moments. These sort of half energy moments become gateways, become doors, where we draw in what's behind and we're drawing in what's ahead. And that's also very much in keeping with receiving. What we're talking about is conscious receiving. And you know, I was opening myself up to this energetically, to receiving and working in this new way. And what I was reminded of very strongly is my sun rune is Largus, which is a very open rune, and my moon rune, my lunar rune, is Ewaz, which is also a very open rune. It's because it's this rune of partnership and of feeling the other, of being in connection with the other, and Largus spreads us out in all directions and is a gateway to all of the different worlds. Receiving comes very easy and very naturally. And when we were working with Heimdall through the course of last month in the hearth space, we were talking about the way in which people who are energetically aware, people who have a lot of access to intuition, can become overwhelmed by that receiving. So while you are thinking about your rune, and once again in this session we're going to cover 6 runes in depth. I will tell you what they are in a moment. So if we're going to be covering, your rune will come up at least once, you know, during the course of each lunar month, the rune that you're working on at the moment. Where was I? You can see receiving. What receiving does is it opens us up, and it opens us to wisdom from the body, to wisdom from spirit, to wisdom from our minds, to wisdom from the ancestors, from the past, from the future. You know, it brings all of that in, and we want that, and we need that in the world. We might have acted very cleverly in the world, humanity in general, but we haven't always acted with the most wisdom. So for those of us who find that sense of people can talk, sometimes people talk about downloads, or they talk about just knowing. It's such a complex weaving of knowledge and information from so many different sources, and it tends to happen quite deep down in our bodies, and it can become very overwhelming when that happens. And so this is why the theme for this week is conscious receiving, because this is really, really important. When we are in a state of receiving, it's difficult for us to then, we can't take decisions in that place. This is a moment of receptivity, so the energy is coming in, and we need to have this moment, we might refer to it as like a bridging moment, where we decide that we're going to take action. I work with the Jungian archetypes to help me to do that. So I work, when I'm preparing for Middle Earth readings, I move into Sorceress, and I do a lot of work from Sorceress. But what I've been trying to do more and more consciously is to work with my Queen archetype as well. And what she does is she holds the boundaries. She holds boundaries. You can work with other archetypes too. I do a lot of this work with my one-to-one clients, looking at how we are channeling energy. And when I'm doing Middle Earth readings, for example, although I have my Sorceress activated and I'm receiving stuff from above, I'm receiving stuff from below, I'm receiving stuff from those of you who are joining me, which is lovely. Welcome everybody. I am more and more consciously weaving my boundaries around me. And my boundaries are made out of the vision that I have seen for the world, my purpose in the world, and my own energetic reserves in any given moment. So if I'm in a high energy place, then I can receive a lot, and then I can bring it back out and share what I've received. If I'm in a low energy place, then it's not a good idea to receive so much. And there are lots of different ways in which we can work with this. So when you're thinking about your rune for this month, start to think about it not just as I am receiving from this rune, but also how does this rune help me to hold my energetic boundaries more, to be more in alignment, so that I'm not always like an antenna receiving everything, that I'm starting to generate some filters, and to be able to consciously put them up, consciously take them down, work with them more. It's all about the conscious mind, and all about the way in which our conscious mind partners with our energetic being and our spiritual self, and all of these things come together. So this is what we're going to be playing with. Now, for this Middle Earth readings, there are no planetary movements this week. We are in a state of pause. We've just had some really big planetary movements. We've just moved Suna's chariot. The sun has just moved into Tewaz, the rune of action. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's helpful at this point, because we talked about Tewaz, the rune, last week, but what I wanted to talk about is the third 8. So Tewaz is the opening rune. It's the first rune in the third 8 of runes, the third family. So the Elder Futhok is made up of 24 runes, and there are 8. What am I trying to say? There are 3 families, and there are 8 runes in each families, and families happen to be called 8s, which is confusing because it's not spelled the same, but it's a useful way to remember. There are 8 runes in each 8. And Tewaz is the opening rune for the final 8. And there are lots of theories about how the 8s work and why they're done this way, but I think what everyone does agree with is that there is a distinctive energy within each family of runes. So you might think about the first family of runes, the first 8, as being formative, quite primal energies. They can feel quite simple. It sounds wrong because they're not simple runes, but we can feel them quite viscerally in our bodies when we channel them. The second 8, we might think of them as being like the challenger runes, the storm runes, the testing runes, the runes where we've got that energetic foundations. We've got our foundations from the formation with the first 8, and then the second 8 comes along and it starts that alchemy process, which we need in order to evolve. And then the third 8, which starts with Tewaz, is where we get maturation, and we get synergy, and we get working together. So this is why this idea of conscious receiving, and of using different parts of ourselves, of working with different aspects of ourselves, and saying, there is part of me that is strongly connected, that sorceress part, but there is also part of me that knows how to hold my boundaries and will do that. And when they partner together effectively, they work really well. Now, the challenge here, same as receiving anything, is that what I've just said to you, you might be thinking, oh wow, yeah, that'd be great. I can work with my magical self, and then I can work with my, out in the world, sovereign self. That's going to be great. I'm going to do that. But at the moment, you're still in the receiving mode. You're still receiving information, but it's not integrated. And the conscious mind can only hold so much. So the conscious mind has to work in partnership. And we talked about this with the Tewaz rune last week. Think about it as... I don't know where this comes from actually, but Joanna Martin, Dr. Joanna Martin, who I've worked with and who I trained with these archetypes, they're called the power types, is the way that we work with them, forms, talks about the conscious mind being like a human riding an elephant, and the elephant is the subconscious mind. And the human might say, I want to go this way, but unless the subconscious mind wants to go as well, it ain't budging. So when we start to think about, oh, this is a new idea, this is a new way, this is a new paradigm of being that I might move into, we then need to start to work on the how. And the runes are there to offer and support us in that partnership. So before we look at our 6 runes, and I have a little look at the comments and see what's going on with you, and please do, share your rune. I'd love to hear what runes are yours, even if we're not doing, even if yours doesn't come up. Let me know, because it's always nice to know. And obviously we've also got our new thread where you can set your, how am I going to be working to consciously receive with my rune is going to be the question. Suzanne will be posting that later. Through the course of thinking about this week and being aware of what is coming up through March, we're going to be working with Hela in the hearth space. We've just finished working with Heimdall, and I've talked about him, this sort of the highly sensitive, the overwhelm. How do we manage that? And the goddess who came forward as the successor to Heimdall, saying, so I want to come forward, is Hela, the goddess of the underworld. And the themes that she is bringing through this month are cruelty and compassion. And we had a little chat about this in the hearth space on Friday, and I was saying that for me that felt a little bit edgy, because I was like, well, compassion, or with that, having compassion for others, having compassion for myself, that's, everyone wants to do that, don't they? If you look at any LinkedIn feed or Instagram feed, it's going to say compassion somewhere, but cruelty, not so much. But what Hela is inviting us into is an understanding of cruelty as the practice ground that where we start to play with our boundaries. And I'm going to be talking about this a lot more in the introduction. I'm going to be doing an introductory session around this theme later this week. I'm planning to do it on Wednesday, so stay tuned in for that. Oh, I've lost my thread of thought. Sorry, I can see some things going on in the chat. I'm going to stay focused. Stay focused, just saying interesting things in the chat. Is children. I was looking at my children, I was looking at my sons. And they adore each other, absolutely adore each other. My younger son is thinks of his older brother as a hero, and yet they also beat the living daylights out of each other on a regular basis. They are crueler to each other than they are to anybody else. And this Hela said, she's like, this is your way in. Because this is recognizing that cruelty, just as we go through the first date, the second date, the third date, cruelty is a rite of passage where we experience cruelty, which tells us, I do not like this, and I will not tolerate it in my realm. That's the queen speaking there. This is where the queen is doing her learning, or the king, the sovereign, is doing their learning. No. And when we are cruel, we also learn, probably an even deeper level, incredibly important things about the capability of anybody to act in ways that we don't like, including ourselves. We learn forgiveness. We learn that why was I cruel? We learn the boundaries, our own boundaries and other people's boundaries through these actions. And for people who want to do good in the world, it can be really, really, really difficult to accept that at some point in our lives we will act cruelly towards another person, and that's okay. That doesn't feel nice. That doesn't feel nice to me, certainly. But Hela says she's coming as a teacher for this. And when you think about conscious receiving and this idea of your sovereign self saying, this is what I'm here to receive and this is what I'm not, bear in mind what feels like cruelty to you, what feels like, well, I can't possibly, this person is suffering, this is really difficult, there's this out in the world, I need to do this about something else. When the pressure feels really intense, what part of you is saying, I can't bear the thought of acting cruelly and not doing something about this, or receiving it, or allowing myself to be in compassion with this person. And so this response of cruelty, that cruelty is a teacher, a really important teacher, is what she was saying, and which will help us in this sense of conscious receiving and saying, yes, sometimes I will be totally in receiving mode, sometimes I will not. And some people might receive that as cruelty, particularly in healing communities where we feel like, we need to be there all the time for each other. If somebody says, please offer healing, our immediate response is to say, of course. Of course. And if we don't, we feel, well, that feels horrible. But what if you're not in a good energetic state and you then transmit you're not energetically, you're sick, and then you try and do healing with somebody else, and basically you just send them your sickness, you know? So these are the types of questions that we need to start thinking about with conscious receiving. Now, through the course of this month, we're also exploring healing, and specifically healing with the runes. And thank you to those of you who have posted your questions about healing with the runes. I'm going to be doing I'm definitely going to be doing one live workshop about healing with the runes. I'm debating whether to do it a couple of times, because I know some people the afternoons, some people the evenings are better. I may well post and say what's best for you, but I'm also going to be doing some recorded lives for you about healing with the runes. I'm going to be talking about healing with the runes, and this is important as well in terms of receiving energy from a rune. A rune may pop up and say hello, and you might be right, I'm here to receive, I want to receive, but on what level do you want to receive? How can this rune offer you more wholeness? So again, although we're doing this week is all about receiving, look at the lives about healing through the course of this month as well, to feel into what does it feel like to receive healing from a rune. Now, what might your rune offer you in terms of healing, stepping into wholeness? And finally, I am just about to open, it will happen this week, the doors will be opening for the next Dream Wheel retreat, which is a spring equinox Dream Wheel retreat. Happening on, I'm not going to give you the dates because I'm going to get them wrong, but that I'll post all about that, and that is all about vision and purpose. And you remember that I talked about receiving, and that this partnership between the sorceress and the queen, or you could call them the sorcerer and the sovereign. No, absolutely fine. Or you can use king, whatever works for you. The retreat is called Vision Quest, and it is about connecting with vision, but it's also about when we connect with vision, we don't just go, "Hi, I'm open to everything." We also say, and that means there are going to be things I will be saying no to, and so we're going to be working through that with the through the retreat as well. It's saying, what is my vision, and therefore what is my vision not. Okay, so this is what I want you to think about in terms of conscious receiving. So the runes that we are going to be looking at today, and actually I tell a lie, let me look at the comments first, just to make sure that nobody has asked any particular questions. Maggie says, so Sally Ann says, I wonder if you might give us a few minutes when you come to the circle. I can't actually, Sally Ann, because it starts to record the minute that I come on. So it might be that your connection is not picking up on the live. Try and do a bit of a preamble so that people can get settled. But basically it hits live, and that means that for people who are doing watching the recording, they will receive the full thing. So apologies about that. I don't think it is just you. I think that sometimes people's Facebook just takes a little minute to sync with the live, but for other people it doesn't. Sue says yours is Thurisas. So Thurisas hasn't come up this one. I thought it might, but it hasn't come up this time. So I'm interested whether it wants to come up for the magics or for the releasing. Suki, so how do you get your runes? So watch the live from last week, because we're working in a different way now. So you will want to pick your rune, and then you can work with the with your rune through the course of the month, and I'll be talking about how you can work with the different ones. If you don't have your own rune set yet, I can post, I've got a little rune generator, an online generator, so I'm just going to make a note to post that for you. And through the course of last week's live, this week's live, and the following two, we'll be doing a deep dive into each of the runes through the course of this month, which is the way we'll be working through future. So really good question there. So if you don't have a rune set, I'll post the rune generator, or maybe you can make your own rune set. It's a fun thing to do. April says, oh, you've got Tewaz with the Merc stave. So we did Tewaz, and I think we did Tewaz Merc stave last week as well, April. So if you haven't caught up with that one, do watch that one. Michelle is saying you've got Largus for your cycle this month. I wanted to do Largus this week because that's my sun rune, but it's not come up quite yet, so we shall see when Largus wants to come. But what you can start to look at is there are runes that are very obviously receiving runes, like Largus. We're going to be covering Perthro, which is a receiving rune as well, and there are runes that can feel more defensive, and there are runes that can feel more generative. Now, actually, all of them can work in different ways, but they often present a particular face to start with. So Largus is often one that, yes, when I do, for people's birth runes reports, when they have Largus, I will normally advise them to do very regular energetic cleansing. So who knows, maybe we'll be discussing that next week. Chen's got Yara and Hagalaz. Yara and Hagalaz. Well, they're quite nice together, actually. I'm enjoying that combination, Chen. We did Hagalaz last week. We haven't got to Yara yet, so that will come. And Suzanne, you've got Suelo, which I know we did last week, didn't we? Candice is saying, I'm looking forward to working with Hella. I am too. She's going to be epic to work with. So the runes that we're going to work with today, and they came up in order, I did my rune reading at the beginning for them, are Perthro. So here we have the Perthro rune. I cannot find my cards. They have hidden themselves. So we've got a lovely Perthro rune. This is my Holly rune set. Then we are going to be looking at, oh, who wants to come next? Then Rado here. So this is a first date rune. Rado, rune of the rider. Then we have Algiz here. Second date. Oh, second date rune towards the end of the second date. So it's a little bit of easing there. It's still about disruption because it's about receiving. So it's going to be quite interesting to look at that one. Gibo, rune of exchange and gift giving. So perfect for a receiving that came up. Feyu here, which tends to be about, it is very much a receiving rune, but it's also a hoarding rune. So that's going to be fun. And then the final one we're going to be looking at today is Iwaz here. So if your rune hasn't come up today, remember that we have it, we have last week's where we did Suelo, Tewaz, Ewaz, Urus, Hagalaz and Anzus, and then we'll be doing the others in the future sessions. And that you can still post and share about your runes. So with the Perthro rune, we are in the what I call the Perthro paradigm at the moment, which opened when Hela's chariot moved into Perthro. So Hela's chariot is Pluto, moves very slowly. So once every 9 years. I like that it's 9 years, you know, 9 worlds. We did the 9 mothers reading in the Heartspace last month, which is great. And it's very much about, there is this energy of surrender. I talked in the Ask Maggie live about the weird rune, about the similarities between Perthro and the modern concept of the weird rune, because Perthro can signify the unknown. And it can feel a little bit, we can feel a little bit seasick when we are working with Perthro. It does feel, it's called, sometimes it's referred to as being like play and laughter, lots of different interpretations. Sometimes it's seen as being like the casket in which the apples of Idun, who brings new life, that they are within her casket. Sometimes that's is seen as being there. So apple trees sometimes come up as well for Perthro. It is a rune of rebirth, but it's also a rune that we can refer to as karmic. I know that's a different tradition, but it has this sense in which what is old, as well as what is new and rebirthing, it's all going to float to the surface with Perthro. So it's a rune of consequences. So it does have quite a strong gravity to it, which is why it balances that here are the consequences of all the stuff you and your ancestors have done. And here is some lovely, fun, playful, connected, surrendering, magical energy to help you to surrender to the current and to be present within that. So with the Perthro rune, it's actually a really useful one. This is the first rune that I ever used as an energetic container, because it has this very fluid, flowing, rebirthing. You know, it's a great receiving rune because it says, you know, you're going to receive what you need. So you can either resist it or you can flow with it. But what you can do with the Perthro rune is you can turn it on its side like this, and you can make an energetic container to hold that and to say, what I would like to receive right now is what I personally need. The wisdoms that are hidden within the subconscious mind, that my past lives are holding onto, that I'm ready to receive right now. And you can imagine almost like this silver cauldron that you're sitting in, holding that energy, and to a certain extent, you know, protecting you from the collective stuff, because Perthro can feel quite overwhelming when we are faced with a planetary movement of Hela you know, we're working with Hela, of the goddess of the underworld, of the realm of the dead, of the realm of the old ancient energies, of things that need to come through, of things that need to rebirth, that have been held and like repressed, coming back through and coming to the surface. That can feel pretty full on. And so we can work with the Perthro rune as a partner to say that there are times where I will sit in that fullness of that energy. For those of you who did the Heimdall story with me, will know what that feels like. And there are times when we can say, I need that to be contained so that I can receive what is mine. You can also use that to set intentions for saying, actually, what I'd like to work with is family karma, for example. So the Perthro rune here, pause what you are receiving out, you know, into the world for you to receive. But when it's like this as the container, it can then hold the intention that you are setting for receiving. So have a little feel into what would I like to put out there? With Perthro, it's very difficult to say, no, I will not receive this. It sort of laughs at that. But what you can do is you can, with gratitude, you can do gratitude where you say, I'm grateful for the wisdom that I am receiving that will help me on my personal path. I am grateful for the wisdom that I am receiving, or the healing that I am receiving, whatever you, however you want to define that, that is going to help me to manage my family relationships better. I am grateful for the power that I am receiving that is going to help me to move through what I am experiencing in my workplace right now, for example. So you become an invitation to Perthro. It doesn't respond well to commands, really. Now, the Iwaz rune keeps popping up in funny places. Let's do the Iwaz rune. So in the rune row, we have Yera, then Iwaz, then Perthro. And Perthro is often seen as being the well of weird, like the well. And Iwaz becomes the tree of life, the Yggdrasil, the northern world tree that draws up the waters from Perthro and acts as a container through which everything manifests. So Iwaz, if you've received Iwaz, you could be looking at it in terms of thinking about, where do I need to have more protection? Where do I need to set firmer boundaries for myself? It's a rune of defense. It's a rune of claiming personal power as well, of saying, this is my truth, of claiming that, and also almost as receiving yourself. So you could do work around that. You could say, I am acknowledging my tenacity, my strength, the way that I defended my beliefs, my integrity. And imagine that when you do that, because the Iwaz rune is the rune of the world tree, it's this rune of manifestation, when you are claiming that power, it hears you. And it writes those things deeper into the bark of the world tree. And so it's a way of claiming power. It's a form of claiming power. Candy says, I got Iwaz for my daily rune. So yeah, so you might do a little bit of work on your daily rune with that one then, Iwaz. Candies. What was the other thing I wanted to say? The other thing with the Iwaz rune is, again, as I said with Perthro, you can, when you know a rune well enough and when you have journeyed deep enough into its mysteries, even if you go, whoa, Largu's rune, it's water, where is the ability to contain the energy of Largu's? It is possible. It's about that partnership that you're working with the rune. So with the Iwaz rune, when we're talking about receiving, because it's a rune of defense, one of its names, one of its kennings is Fire's Keeper, which they think might be because it was made of yew wood, which is said to, it takes a long time to burn, and when it does burn, it burns very hot. And some people think it's because they could have made like little caskets of yew wood to hold the embers of the fire from different woods, and it would preserve that heat inside. We don't know, but that's what's thought. And so it conserves energy. So if you are feeling like, actually, I'm not in a place where I am able to give very much of myself right now, then Iwaz is a great rune for you. It's about consolidating your own power and your own energy. Then we have Rado. It's the rune of the road. So this is going to be a rune that's much more about receiving through the conscious mind, receiving through the body. I was talking about conscious receiving. Radar really invites that in, because it says in order for you to receive, you're going to need to take action of some sort. So it might be that you go on a lovely walk out in nature, so I'm open to receiving that way. It might be that you need to go and visit friends. No, it's the rune of the road. So it's what journey do you need to take in order to receive. It could be a shamanic journey, be doing a drum journey of some sort. So you will want to, if you've got your radar rune and that's the opening to its receiving, it's saying I need to take some form of intentional action through which the power of radar can then manifest for itself. So if you set your intentions last week and you said, right, I'm working with radar and these are some intentions that I have for myself, this week what you'll want to be doing is saying, okay, what action do I need to take to invite what I would like, to invite my intentions to manifest? It's a little bit like, when people, sometimes they email me and they'll say, will I get a job? And I say, have you applied for a job? It's that type of thing. The universe waits for you to create a door for it to step through, I'm going to leave it at that. You get the metaphor there. There is an action that needs to be taken. So you'll want to think about what feels good for me in terms of movement. I mean, you could even, with Rado, do rhythmic dance. That would work fine. And sometimes that releases, stuff that needs to come out. Or sometimes we receive inspiration in that way. So I know that for me, going on a walk is one of the best ways for me to receive inspiration, different to my Largu's inspiration. So I was feeling, again, quite a lot of overwhelm this morning, which makes sense to me in terms of I'm working on mediating between my Largu's rune and my Uru's rune. Uru's is my rune for this month. And I do, when I have a shower and I get ready in the morning, it just goes, everything comes through and I'm like, whoa. Whereas when I walk, I often receive more clearly the actual steps that I need to take. So it helps with that conscious receiving, my working with Rado. So then we have Algiz. And Algiz is a very classic rune that you might think about with receiving, because it's the rune of the divine. It is guidance, it's spirit guidance. It's literally a human being standing with their arms up like that, looking up and saying, help me, support me. So for this receiving, it would be sensible to be saying, I want to go wear my Algiz rune. I'm going to be thinking about, what do I receive from my spirit guides, from my gods, if you work with gods, from source? Some people think about it as source. And really opening to that. Now, I don't think that anyone has said in the chat that they have Algiz, but it feels something is coming through. So there must be somebody who has Algiz who's just not here on the live. Who, as I'm looking at the Algiz rune here, I'm seeing, it's bizarre, I'm just seeing a goat's head, which I know is ridiculous. Why is there a goat's head in there? I don't know. It's a little long nose and there's horns coming out. That's all I can say. And I'm reminded of Thor and his goat. So his chariot is pulled by goats. And he goes about, goes around the world doing his thing, and he brings blessings. Thor is a good god to work with. Human beings love to work with him. But there was one time when he went and he stayed with a couple, and they had 2 children, and he said to them, I will provide supper for you. I will slay one of my goats. The only rule I have is do not damage any of the bones. And the son in the story, he's just hungry. Breaks a little bone apart and he eats the marrow inside. And then what Thor does is he takes his mighty hammer, he swings the hammer up, and then he blesses the bones of the goat, and his goat regenerates. And they're like, oh, the magic goats, his magic regenerating goats. And then he sees that it's lame, and he's like, what? Somebody did this, and it's not good. It's not good. I won't tell you the rest of the story, but no, not a good thing to do. For those of you who have done who are on Perthro and Soul Journey, we have a little bit of that with his servants. They come a little bit more. That's their story there. So partially, this rune is reminding you that there are etiquettes that we can follow if we want to receive, and this is very much going to fit in with the Gibo rune, which is coming next. If we want to receive, we want to try and understand the rules of engagement. If we're talking about working with source, doing your research, making some offerings, following what other people have done until you know that actually, well, this is what the deity is asking of me. You can't go far wrong if you go and read a book and it says, for Thor, what should we do? Should we do some offerings of mead upon the earth for him, or should we go out, go and do a fabulous painting of his hammer, or wear the Mjolnir, his talisman. Just go and have a little read and say, what's sacred to you, and what could I do that would honour him and bring his energies into my life, to show respect. And then we may well receive personal gnosis afterwards about what the deity would like us to do specifically. But it's saying, learn from others first, and then you'll be in a safe space. This is also part of our container, isn't it? It's part of our container saying, I want to work with Thor. I don't want to work with some other being who just happened to hear my call, and because I wasn't very specific about who I was working with, someone else rocks up. It's like, this is about, I want to work with Thor. What does he need in order to come and speak to me? So how come, again, this is about opening to receiving, but with the Algiz rune, it's about saying, who am I calling, or what am I calling into my life? It feels as if there's something else there a little bit. I'm trying to think what it is. I think the other thing is, it's like my conscious brain is getting in the way now, wanting to interfere a little bit. Yeah, I think that it is. It's Thor is reminding us that the Algiz rune is a little bit of a precursor to the Manaz rune that comes later. It's reminding us that the divine is inside us as well as outside of us. And so Thor is saying, it's not just about knowing the rules of the deity or the being or the rune or whatever it is that you are working with, and understanding how to work with them and doing your research. It's also about understanding yourself. And this is just a piece, maybe it's just a health and safety bit that I put, or always with the Northern tradition. I would follow it probably with any pantheon that I was working with and any spirit guides that I was working with, but it's very clear within the Northern tradition. And when they say to you, and they initiate a relationship, and they say, I'd like you to do this, you don't have to. And that can feel really weird to some people. They're like, oh no, I received this guidance, I must do it. But I've been talking about this partnership between our, let's say, like our magician self, our magical self, and our sovereign self. And I believe that the Northern pantheon and the spirit guides and the way of working, they are looking for people who are strong in their own sovereign identity as well, and saying, this is my purpose, this is what I will do, and this is what I won't. And that they will respect that more strongly. If you're there sort of saying, I'll do anything, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that, you're not going to be somebody who's going to be able to keep strong oaths and commitments. You're not going to be able to do the symbol right effectively, because you'll be saying on one day with the symbol right, well, I'm going to do this, ta-da! And then somebody will come along and they'll say, well, will you do this instead? And you're like, okay, then that's fine. And you'll go and do that instead. So it's exhibiting that, let's call it strength of character, I suppose, to say, I committed to doing this, to consciously doing this. And if you decide you're not going to do it anymore, then you stop. Okay, so that's what the Algiz rune has to say. And then we've got the Gibo rune. So there's some very similar messages with the Gibo rune. So this is the rune of gift giving and exchange. And this is talking very much about, again, it's about reciprocity. I'm actually feeling just like a hollowness in my tummy when I feel this Gibo rune. It's that sense in which, what are the rules that you put in place around when you are deserving of receiving? Bearing in mind that your whole being is made up of codified rules for what's good for me, what's not good for me, what do I want, what do I not want, that are operating all of the time. And this sense of Are you somebody who is like, yeah, I'm totally open to the abundance of the universe? And clue, if that is you, then you are in abundance right now, you know? Or are you somebody who feels that there are rules attached to what you can receive, what you can't receive? Now, the Fey rune is whispering me. She's the last one there, so she's going to talk a bit more about abundance here. Gibo does say, this isn't just no, I'm going to make my mindset like this, and then everything's going to come and it's going to be brilliant. And if I don't have everything that I want right now in this moment, it means I'm not really a magical person. That is not what it is saying. We each have our life paths to follow. We each have our destinies to follow. But there can be times when old rules that have been passed down from our family members, rules that have been passed down from when we are at school, rules that have been passed down by society, are holding us back. And so what the Gibo rune is inviting you into is, again, to bring into conscious awareness not just the things that you don't want to do, but the things that you do want to do and do want to receive. Let me try and find an example of that. So with the Gibo rune, I like to do an exercise where I lie down. If it's a nice sunny day, I'll lie down in a field, but it's not very nice there, so I probably go and lie down on the floor or on the bed, and I just put my arms out and my legs out. And the reason it's nice to do it in a field is you look up at the sky, and the sky opens, this huge vault opens up over you, and it opens you into the realm of possibility, and where we can ask what we need from that realm of possibility rather than in a closed space. It's almost like a power pose, and when you put your arms out there and you put your legs out and you're in this space, which feels very powerful but also very vulnerable at the same time. And Gibo is inviting us into deeper connection with those parts of ourselves that feel vulnerable and feel exposed and feel afraid and feel undeserving or unworthy. You know, I was talking about cruelty, those parts of us that judge ourselves really, really harshly. And the god who's often associated with the Gibo rune, Gayfion is associated actually, but I'm not going to talk about her at the moment. I'm going to talk about Forseti. So Forseti is he's a judge and mediator of the gods, and he's known as a mediator more than a sort of judge there going, right, no, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And there is a reminder with the Gibo rune when you're thinking about receiving that we often judge ourselves more harshly than anybody else, and we often judge ourselves more harshly than any of the spirit guides or deities who want to work with us would. And so if we are finding it difficult to forgive ourselves for things that we have done in the past, working with the Gibo rune can be really helpful in doing that stance, bringing your legs and arms out to the side and then breathing in and just inviting however you want to think about the Gibo rune. So you can think about this as being like the gift of the blessing of the gods. Invite that energy into those spaces. I ask for blessings for this part of myself, for this memory, for this scar with this wound, and invite them in. So that's what's coming with the Gibo rune. And then finally we have the Fei rune. Here we are. It's the Fei rune. And I've been talking about, it's fun that we've got the Fei rune because I've been talking about boundaries, and whenever I think about Fei and I think about receiving, I always think about Overwhelm, the primal cow who gives indiscriminately, you know. So if we want to receive abundance, the first place to look for that is from Mother Earth herself and from the sun and from nature, you know, not from those places that we experience as being finite or are human in some sense. So Fei, although it's known as the rune of wealth, was before that it was the rune of life force. And so it's an opening to life force. And I always think about Overwhelm as having this connection with the life-giving rays of the sun and the energy of the earth. And so she offers that in. So it's that opportunity really to connect deeply with the Fei rune. So if you're on awakening, go back and do your power song meditation, do the feeling Fei meditation. You can look on the webpage to feel into Fei as well. So it's that feeling beyond the wealth, our concepts of wealth and what wealth means and success and things like that, into a much deeper energy of nurturing, which Overwhelm represents. But there is also a sense which I touched on last week, and I think because we've got the same, because the planets have just moved and they're not moving again, it's still very relevant. I mentioned this idea of being a beacon, and I'm thinking here about Freya. So Fey rune is often associated with the goddess Freya. And those of you again who have done Awakening will be able to go and listen to the Feyuin story module and listen to the way that Freya works with this concept of value. And she is very comfortable in, what's the word I'm looking for? Negotiating her own value in the world. You know? And so Feyu is inviting this, again, very similar to Gibo in some ways. They've come as a little bit of partners. The sort of Algis, Gibo, Feyu runes have flowed together a little bit. What is it that Freya wants to say? It's this, we've talked about guilt, we've talked about cruelty, and she's bringing in a little bit of self-worth here as well. And this sense in which the biggest block to being able to receive is our own sense of self-worth. And that can create a block, like a negative block of Feyu energy in the body. And that can be passed down. It might be that you're holding that and that's generational, that it's not something that you have created, but it's something that's generational. And so we look for where that is, because that can create a blockage in our Feyu energy and a blockage of our ability to receive abundance in the world. And then working with the Feyu rune helps us. And Freya, through her stories, offers this very strong archetype of a deity who is able to hold their own worth and to influence, negotiate, perform magics that are needed to consolidate her power and therefore her ability to do the things that she wants to do in the world. And she says, if you are feeling a block of, in terms of your self-worth, your feelings of deservingness, your feelings of, any form of guilt or anything like that, you can work with the Feyu rune on this. It can be helpful with this. I've done work one-to-one with people before with the Feyu rune. We've done some work, and then we did it with in Mastery, I know, last year. So I think those of you who've done Mastery before still have access to that recording. It's it's a very healing rune for these types of very old wounds around our deservingness to receive. And so I'll be looking to work with that. So you can hear through the runes that I've taken you through that there are some of them that work on actions that I can take. There are others like the Perthro rune where we can work energetically and we're bringing some mindfulness to the way that we manage our energy. There are some like the Feyu rune where actually working very intensively with the rune itself and opening up for healing, saying actually what I'm looking to is receive the energy of the rune itself, rather than the rune bringing me out into the world like the Rado rune and bringing me what it is that I need to receive elsewhere. So sometimes the rune offers you its own energy, and sometimes it's acting as a guide, taking you somewhere else in terms of that receiving. Okay, so that's actually a really nice way with the Feyu rune to end, thinking about healing for the runes, that they offer such a huge spectrum of healing and healing modalities for us to work with. So keep your questions coming, and I'm going to be planning to do my first live, and I'll try and focus, I think, on receiving healing through the runes in the live this week. And Candy says Feyu is my sun rune. Michelle says it's mine too. Go Feyu sun rune. People love Feyu as a sun rune. It's just a lovely rune. It offers such being a magical being. I think about Freya, I always think, she's just a magical being, isn't she? So yes, she is a great patron to work with if you have Feyu in your birth runes. Sue, I'm very glad that the session has been informative. Suzanne is going to be doing our post, so you can share now what is it that you are opening to receiving with your rune. How would you like to partner with it? Are you going to be thinking about that energetically? Are you going to be thinking about that in terms of places that you can feel like, yeah, actually I'm blocking my ability to receive here? Are you going to be thinking about it as a rune that's going to be leading you out into the world and opening you to opportunities for receiving? What is present for you? And Suzanne, yes, you have faith 3 times in your chart, and you are indeed a magical being. Lovely to see all of you. And I will be doing the live on Hela and Cruelty and Compassion later this week. We will be opening up the Dream Wheel events for Vision Quest, which will be coming. I'm very excited about Vision Quest, and I'll still be doing lots of work on healing with the runes through the coming month. So I look forward to seeing you all very soon. And I should also say, for those of you with Sooner Star Wheel, as you know, I am adapting Sooner Star Wheel now so that it flows more with the way that we're working in Middle Earth readings. So that's why you will receive your planetary movements in your email. It'll be coming into your inbox either today or early tomorrow morning. Okay, bye bye everybody, lovely to see you.